Hey everybody, it's been a couple weeks since I've been able to post a tutorial because I had a malfunction with my desk, which does hold my selfie stick, which then takes the videos. Today I'm going to be doing a couple of different things, showing you a couple of different things, glow in the dark as well as blending, and the mandala design that I'm putting on top, as well as resin, because I'm going to be resining this to give it a nice glossy coat. So there is a few different things that we're going to talk about today. You will need a blending brush, which is an old fuzzy brush. Doesn't matter, you don't need to go out and buy a brand new one, just make one fuzzy by scrunching it down lots of times onto a hard surface, dabbing with it. You'll need dotting tools if you have some. If not, find whatever works for you, like pens and toothpicks and knitting needles and stuff like that. The bottoms of your paint brushes work really well as well. Now I use a fine lining brush, which I cut most of the bristles off. You use whatever lining brush works for you. I do put sparkles on all of my mandalas most of the time. Depending on the color of mandala, I'll use a champagne colored glitter or a hologram colored glitter. It's both folk art, and one's called champagne, one's called hologram. The hologram has a bit of a turquoise look to it. Now I will be using this glow in the dark Americana glow in the dark paint, and I'll be showing you that step as well. I'm going to seal it with some Mod Podge, and I'll explain that a little bit later, why I seal it with this as well as resin. I'm going to be using Art Resin, which I ordered from Amazon, and this is a high quality resin, and it doesn't yellow outdoors, and it leaves a glossy finish like this. This is one of my royal mandalas with the gold. Now I start off doing 2 coats of white paint on a rock, no matter if it's white or dark. I like to start with a nice bright white surface, that way the colors really stand out. So I let it dry, then I start blending on whichever colors I feel like putting on. I'm doing a big order, so I've decided to go with a lot of different colors, and this is my last one. So I'm going to go with magenta, a blue, and also a dark teal. And I'm going to add a little bit of white in here as well. Now I'll be showing you how to use resin for rocks. Resin is different depending on what kind of craft you're doing, but I really, lately I've been loving resin. It leaves an awesome protectant layer over top of my painting. High gloss, glassy shine, which is irresistible, I'm telling you. And you won't be able to stop looking at it or touching it. You will not regret going to resin to seal your stones, because it's so beautiful. It's expensive, but it's worth it. And if you cherish your artwork, you will use something decent to protect it, of course. But it's up to you, whatever you want to use to protect your rocks after you're done. I just want to show you how to do it with rocks, because there's not a lot of tutorials out there with resin and rocks. So I wanted to be able to help anybody out who's seen any of my rocks lately and seen that glassy shine. Honest to goodness, it's irresistible. Now once I've blended it all together the way I want it, I let it dry so that afterwards I can put on my layer of sparkles. Now because of the color I chose in this one, I'm going to use the hologram sparkles. They're a little bit teal colored. And they go with a lot of different colors, mind you, but mostly with purples and blues and pinks. They look really good. So I just put a nice thick layer of the sparkles on there. It just gives a really nice backdrop for the white mandala that we're going to put on there using the white acrylic paint. So once it's dry, we can work with it again. Now I've been using rubber gloves lately because every time I've had nice nails, I've gotten them ruined, and so I'm just kind of being cool and wearing rubber gloves to my tutorial today. Now that it's dry, you can see it's a little bit shiny. It's those glittery sparkles in the hologram. but it's going to look so much more sparkly once we've got it all coated in resin afterwards. And I'm just going to do a random design. Each one of my mandalas are different. I really struggle trying to make the exact same one twice. So I just go with the flow with each and every one. I do it different. I switch it back and forth with dots, and then I get my fine lining brush and I go in and I do petals and all sorts of different designs you'll see with this one. Now this is a very fine brush, but that is because I've cut away at least 98% of the bristles with a pair of scissors. So I don't pluck them out. That really damages the leftover pieces, but I do cut them off. And then I'm comfortable doing little fine lines with like 5 or 6 different bristles in my paintbrush. I don't buy expensive paintbrushes because of the fact that I do cut them up in order to suit my needs. I haven't been able to find store-bought brushes that suit my needs. Alright, so I'm just going to do random designs here. I want to thank all of my new followers, my new subscribers. Don't forget, if you like my videos, hit the like button, hit subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my other tutorials. I have a really awesome owl tutorial that's going to be coming out right after this one. Don't miss out on that. Just hit the subscribe button and you'll be able to see all of my videos as soon as they come out. You should be able to set it up so you can get notifications when I post a new video. And I'm just going back and forth with the dotting tools, doing a couple of dots and then switching it up, grabbing my lining brush again and making some fine petals. I like to do little lines in certain places. I just try and be creative, and after you've done a whole bunch of them, it's hard to come up with creative ideas. So hopefully they all end up being gorgeous anyway. Now they're not perfect. I don't like do geometric perfect shapes or anything like that. I'm self-taught. I don't like using a lot of tools. I don't like math and numbers, so I don't like doing measurements. But I do the best I can with what I can see with my eyes and what I can calculate in my mind. I try and start with the center and then even it out on either side. So for instance, I just did 3 petals. I start with the center petal and then do the outer 2 petals so that they're all even. I just try and be creative with it, and nothing's perfect, and that's what I love about it. I am not a perfectionist when it comes to my rocks. And you don't have to be either. It's starting to flow together. Once it might look a little bit choppy before you put on the white mandala. Like the blended colors might not look right to you, but when you get the mandala on there, it just kind of ties it all in together nicely. And then you really just see the blend of colors and it just looks amazing. And here's a bunch that I've done. Now, you have to let the white dry, and then you can go in with the Americana glow in the dark or whatever kind of glow in the dark paint you have. If you have white paint that also glows in the dark, that's a bonus, because then you don't have to do this twice like I'm gonna do. I always do the white first and then I do the glow in the dark afterwards, and I make sure I do a nice thick layer of the glow in the dark so that it's nice and bright when it glows. And I will show you at the end of the video after I resin what they look like once they're glowing. I love glow in the dark. There's so many creative things you can do with glow in the dark paint. And because I'm a big fan of my royal mandalas and my glow in the dark royal mandalas, like these ones, I always have a good supply of the glow in the dark paint. I like making glow-in-the-dark keychains and like inspirational rocks where the word glows, like the hope word glows or faith glows, and it's just beautiful to look at. It's fun for kids too. All right. So once we let that dry, we're going to do the resin. But there's a couple of steps you have to do with resin before you even go near your rocks with it. I did Mod Podge my rocks because if you don't, you might end up with a lot of bubbles. So I Mod Podge them and let that seal and dry up for a little while, and then I put the resin on afterwards. Now you can use paintbrushes to stir your resin. You can use popsicle sticks or tongue dispensers. I use these little cups from my son's Tylenol. I keep all of them, so I have something to measure out my resin in. Always good to have rubber gloves as well as alcohol-based hand sanitizer. This gets off the resin on your skin like butter. All right, so I'm going to use these 2 cups. You get resin as well as hardener, and you have to do equal parts of both. So it won't work, it won't cure. Your rocks will be forever sticky if you don't pour this properly. So make sure you use equal parts. So if you use a teaspoon of resin, you got to use a teaspoon of hardener, and then mix them together. Don't make sure not to measure incorrectly. And wear rubber gloves, tie your hair back. You don't want to get it in your hair. Now I'm doing, because I have a whole bunch of rocks to do today, I'm going to do 2 tablespoons of resin and 2 teaspoons of hardener. And I'm going to mix them all into one little cup together. And since I didn't use the tongue dispenser to stir it, I'm going to just stick with this paintbrush. And I get these old paintbrushes, new paintbrushes from the dollar store that I can just throw out after I'm done with it. So I don't spend a lot of money. I just buy like a 6-pack or a 7-pack for $1.25. And I use these to basically paint the resin onto my rocks, as well as stirring it up. Now you have to stir it up really, really well. You're going to notice it gets really bubbly. And that's what you want. You want to stir it for about 2 to 3 minutes. Really, really good. You'll notice some little resin bubbles might come out. Avoid the resin bubbles. You don't want them in your eyes or anything like that. Just make sure you're in a nice space where you can breathe properly and those bubbles don't go right up your nose. Once you've stirred it up for 2 to 3 minutes, wait for 10 minutes for it to just kind of rest, and then you can start resining. Now I use straws to blow the bubbles off the surface of my rocks once I've resined them. So make sure you got your rubber gloves, make sure you got a fresh paintbrush that the bristles don't come out of. I always tug on them and make sure all the bristles are in there really good. I go with my rock, I paint a little bit on there, and then actually I soap it up like a bar of soap. I'm only using one hand, so it's a little bit difficult, but I literally soap it up with the resin, and then once I've covered the whole surface with the resin in a light coat, I put it down and then I paint a layer on top so it's a little bit thicker. It is bubbly. You will see a lot of bubbles, but that's what the straw's for. You gently blow your breath through the straw and pop all the little bubbles that are on the surface. You'll be able to see it when you're doing it yourself. You can't really see it here, but you'll pop all those little surface bubbles. It takes 24 hours to be able to handle your rocks afterwards, so I hope you have the patience. And then after 72 hours, they're completely cured and they're gorgeous. So I'm gonna show you now what they look like glowing. I'm just gonna shine a flashlight on them. And here they are. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you want to see an owl, watch my next video.